It's just bad all around. If there's any message to be had here, it's that A, do not feel guilt about homeless people, okay? Unless you personally made somebody homeless, don't feel guilty about that, okay? Do not. And people will say, you don't feel guilty, you're heartless. No, guilt is not what people feel when they're not heartless. Heartless people feel guilt all the time. What heartless people don't feel is empathy. But guilt and empathy are not the same thing, okay? They're not even close to the same thing. One of them is productive. The other one is definitely not.
Folks, so as you know, one of the communities that I vaguely interact with is Voshes. The reason for that is it's one that's always made me feel very welcome. They generally like trans people, and it seems to go well. I also seem to at least have a number of people who really like our videos in Voshes chat. That may be because I've thrown money at him, and Vaush has been gracious enough to point people to some of our videos. So that's great. Whether you like Vosh or not, I don't care. I enjoy his content. Shut up. But I do disagree with him on something. And so I want to show you something real quick. I'm going to have to jump around to find it because it's all over the place. But just watch this with me and let's talk about it for a minute because I think this is a problem. Liberals don't care about homeless people. True. However, I think the reasoning's off. Let me see if I can find it.
There are X many empty houses in this city. You know, why do I live in a country that has a national budget that's measured in the trillions and we still have homeless people? You know? Why exactly? But of course, that curiosity leads to political action, so we don't want to do that.
So that's
homeless people are also a massive cost to the state. The line, and the existence of a homeless people is a fun reminder that at any point in time, you exist around homeless people, and crimes between homeless people, a much more severe one. I'm just rambling. Yeah.
So I'm looking
okay?
for a
They're not
part.
even close to the same thing. One of them is productive. People will say, you don't feel guilty, you're heartless. No, guilt is not what people feel when they're not heartless. Heartless people feel guilt all the time. What heartless people don't feel is empathy. But guilt and empathy are not the same thing, okay? They're not even close to the same thing. One of them is productive. The other one is definitely not. I'll work on that. If there's anything to be...
So, I want to be very clear. I do not disagree with most of the thrust of Vosh's argument as far as why homelessness exists, why people are avoidant in dealing with it. I'm going to quibble in the dumbest thing, and that is over a word. Throughout this video, Vosh says that the major issue with homelessness, and generally any social ill, is guilt. People feel guilt for it, and thus don't act on it. Guilt just makes you feel shitty about yourself. I quibble and say as a mental health professional and as a Zen practitioner that you're using terms wrong and you should stop it. So I want to differentiate two terms and I want to explain them very clearly. One is guilt. The other is shame.
I talk shit about mutual aid like LARPers online sometimes because people will be like, don't go vote for Biden. You should do mutual aid. But they never first of all, they've never done anything in their life. And second of all, they don't know what that means. And third of all, they're annoying and fuck them. But if there's any element where I think that a relentless and persistent advocacy for mutual aid is very justified, like pointedly justified, it would definitely be.
And this is what I'm talking about. What he's saying, generally speaking, I don't disagree with. But do you see like some of the stuff in chat? White guilt, fuck guilt, shame and guilt is also narcissistic. And I'm going to say real quick, that if you're talking in the ballpark of things that relate to the human mind as far as emotions and experiences and the way those things are processed, you have fucking stepped in it. Because the simple fact of the matter is that I think we're using terms incorrectly. I don't really have a problem with Vosh's whole argument here. I think this is genuinely true. I think it's true that why people avoid this. But the term he's using isn't guilt, it's shame. So let me differentiate them because it seems like Chad is confused. To me, and this is what I learned not only through my training, but also through Zen, guilt is just a call to integrity. That's it. We feel guilt when we're out of integrity. What I mean by that is that, let's say I promise to Brittany that I will send her an image or send her $3 I owe her. And I don't follow through on that. And Brittany, rightfully so, calls me out for it. Now, in a healthy person, what that comes up is guilt. That is the desire to, one, notice that I broke my word or went against my values. And then the desire to seek to do reparations in some way. And I don't mean reparations in the large political sense, though I do support those. I mean reparations in regards to the relationship, trying to figure that out. Guilt is useful because guilt lets us know when we've stepped in it. But notice that I nowhere in there that said guilt is about beating yourself up. Guilt is not about harming yourself. It's not about treating yourself poorly. It's not about trying to hurt you. Guilt is just about recognizing that you're out of integrity. And when I say out of integrity, what I mean is, do your words and your actions match up? That's it. If I say I'm a person that supports animal rights and I claim I'm vegan, and then I eat a steak in front of you while it's bloody and just sit there and look like a snarling tiger, I'm not really living to my values, right? The point I want to make abundantly clear here is this idea, this notion that guilt is in and of itself quite productive. I want white people to feel guilty for microaggressions. Do I want them to feel necessarily guilty for slavery? Not necessarily, because it wasn't against their necessary values. Though, if they are a lib or a leftist and their values believe that systemic oppression shouldn't happen, and that they are in some way adding to or contributing to those systems, then by definition, you should probably feel guilty for that and find some way to make amends. That's simple. Now, if we're talking about, say, shame, actually, I would say guilt isn't even part of white fragility. I would say guilt is the antidote to white fragility. Because if you just have guilt and you go, oh shit, I'm helping that system, I can do better. From a clear, present mind, from a place of clarity, guilt is not a problem. It's a thing you feel to momentarily realize you're out of whack, and you adjust for it. That deals with white fragility, because if you notice you're playing into systemic oppression or direct oppression, you just go, wow, I fucked up. That's it. That's all. That's all. People nowadays shouldn't feel bad for slavery if they didn't engage in that practice, but they should feel bad for buying into systems that continue all of the damages that slavery did. Yeah, no, white fragility is out of fear, and I'm going to give you the other word now. It's shame. To me, shame isn't an emotion. It's not. Shame is a reaction to emotion. No different than violence. It is a form of internal violence to the self. You do something, someone calls you out, and then all of a sudden you feel awful. You feel terrible because that same story your dad said, that you were this terrible person and you're never going to amount to anything, and why do you look like that? All of those negative stories that you either concocted in your head or your dad did to you or your mean Aunt Rose, doesn't matter. All of that stuff comes up. As one of my Roshis, teacher in Zen, said, is that it's like Memorex, right? You get called out for something, or you realize there's something you didn't do right, and you just pick up the tape, you shove it in the VCR, for those who remember what VCRs are, or you put the DVD in and you just play the same story. I'm a terrible person. I'm an awful person. I'm a racist. I contribute to systemic oppression. You beat yourself with these things, and that's where the lack of productivity comes from. The thing Vosh is pointing at is a shame issue. People shame themselves and think they are bad people, when in reality they are also twisted into systems and need to be able to move out of them. The largest misunderstanding in this situation is that what Vosh is calling guilt, I don't know if this is just his way of framing it. I don't know if it's just that he's using these words interchangeably, because a lot of people do. Guilt and shame are the same to a lot of people. But they're not. Guilt is a proper emotion that is there. It is no different than regret. It doesn't have a target. It's not about hurting yourself or other people. It's about acknowledging it. If I do a discussion here on stream and somebody gets upset, triggered by what I say, am I responsible for their harm? No. I have no intention involved in that, and I can't possibly know how something's going to affect someone watching, especially as our numbers go up. Do I regret that happens? Yes, but regret doesn't mean I'm taking ownership for it. I just feel bad that it happened, and I want to try to adjust that in the future, or at least reach out to that person and fix it. Guilt leads to action. Shame does not. What Vosh is calling guilt is really shame, and I'll say this again for those in the back row. Shame is not a feeling. Please get that through your skull if you're not getting it. And what Quinn said in fucking chat is super true. Full stop. Shame is a reaction to emotion, just like violence. And I'll explain. In the process devised by my Zen master, which was based around a lot of work that psychologists did, what they thought about and what they realized was this: that guilt is about integrity, and shame is when you beat yourself up with an internalized story, a story of your own creation or based on the behaviors of other people treating you poorly. Shame is an action. It's an action you engage in against yourself. Oh, Dad was right. I'm a terrible person. I'm a fuck up. I'll never be any good. Shame is what dysphoria brings up when we're feeling uncomfortable or feeling dysphoric in our bodies, and then we beat ourselves up saying we'll never be a woman. You know, the actual voice that bothers us, not the shit weird-ass transphobes say because they think that they can pretend to be anywhere as strong as that voice. Fuck them. I need everybody to understand this. Yes. Ash, yes. You're done. Discussion over. Not really. Shame is fucking self-harm. It's just a form of internalized emotional self-harm. Yeah. Gender dysphoria isn't shame, but the experience passively of gender dysphoria, in my opinion, leads to shame. This is why I think people experience gender dysphoria to varying degrees, at least one of the reasons. There's probably many, 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 many. Productive and beneficial shame, toxic shame. Do you think there's any difference, any good shame? Adrian, I would say to that what they're calling beneficial shame or productive shame is guilt. This is why a group of people publicly guilting somebody into actions is about changing their values or their way of thinking, and out of integrity, them changing their behavior. Shame is a cognitive distortion. It takes it and it makes it hyper-focused on yourself, and all of your self-worth issues come rolling back in. Why do you think manipulative, shitty, abusive parents use the term shame so much? Shame on you. Shame on not listening to your mother. Hey, Jess, what do you suggest for people battling with gratuitous amounts of shame? Honestly, meditation. Sit down, shut the fuck up, and learn to catch the story. If you can catch the story, you can start to breathe past it, and you can move through it. Because the problem is your mind is going on autopilot. That's the problem with reactions. They're just autopilots. They're systems that have absolutely been coded into you since your youth to cause you to act in a particular way. I would say the way you deal with violent reactions, either internal violence or external violence, is through mindfulness, among many other things in therapy. Because shame is just the internal violence. You hurt yourself. You beat yourself up. I'm terrible. I'll never be a woman. I'm just a bad person. Oh my God, everything's terrible forever. But if you catch that and go, wait. No, I'm fucking not. Like, I'm literally not. That isn't true. If you can catch that story, holy shit. Can you imagine? Could you imagine catching that fucking story and suddenly realizing that you don't have to treat yourself that way, and that what's coming up isn't actually how you think or feel about yourself, but in reality is just spontaneous mentations that are coming up because of an ingrained habit? Think about it from that perspective. This is what I mean when I talk about that people take their thoughts too seriously. I'm going to make a really spicy claim, and it's this. Every single person has had a violent thought. Every single person has had an awful thought, a monstrous thought, a terrible thought. And guess what? They don't mean shit about you. They don't matter. Unless you act on them, they're just thoughts. This is what people don't understand about meditation. It's not about getting rid of thought. It's not about just making thoughts disappear. You can't do that. Thoughts just arise. The point is just to watch them and not attach to them. Oh, I thought about choking that person in roadblocks. Guess what? So what? Yes, shame can be self-compounding. The way you catch that is by catching it and being gentle with yourself. Reparenting time, like Niana said, is really a good one. Another one for this is catching it and going, okay, I'm not this person I say I am. And I'm not weak or bad for still struggling with this habit. This is a habit that requires very real time to deprogram. I really need you guys to understand this. And that is, the simple fact is that in order to deal with this stuff, you can't rush it. You can't be impatient. You have to slow down the process, look at the system, and realize what's going on. When you act out violently, you put a hole in the wall, you scream at somebody, you do all that. It's just a violent reaction. It's a reaction to emotions. Guess what's coming up? When we cover Mondo, we'll go over this. But guess what it is? It's just fear and a little bit of sadness. This is what makes abusers so pathetic. This is what makes transphobes so pathetic. The reason they act out with violence towards us and towards their partners or whomever is they're just afraid little children. That's not to say that to bring empathy up. It's that very clearly, and in the most very clear ways, they're acting from fear. Because real anger, real fucking anger, guess what? It's clean. It's not violent. It takes action. Real anger deals with self-defense. Real action is where mutual aid and protest comes from. Real anger is when you see someone hurting and someone you love being damaged, and you fucking stand up for them. Not as a rage monster, not putting your fist through the wall, not acting like a child. When I see a trans girl newly out being treated like shit by TERFs, right now, do you think that I'm acting violently? Am I putting my fist through the screen? Am I screaming names? No. But does it anger me? Yes. Because anger is sacred. Anger, in my opinion, comes from responding to injustice or unfairness. Full stop. You get mad for them or for yourself or for those you love. This is why anger has such a bad rap, because it keeps continually getting conflated with fucking violence. It is disgusting. Clean anger is sacred. It is necessary. It breeds conflict, and conflict can be healthy and needed. It is the forest fire of relationships. Properly maintained and done in a clean way leads to growth. Done poorly and out of control leads to destruction and unending suffering. I am so tired of anger getting a bad rap. I am so tired of fucking guilt getting a bad rap. Guilt isn't your enemy. Guilt is the fucking internal barometric pressure you know that tells you when you're off. Yeah. At the end of the day, what Nyana said is absolutely correct. And we'll cover this when we go over the Mondo process at some point. Anger is compassion. Full stop. Anything else is just pandering, whining, and nonsensical violent reaction. I need you all to understand this. Why I am quibbling with Vosh here is not because I disagree with his point. No, we pretend homeless people don't exist. We fucking send cops in to clean them out because we don't want to deal with the fucking problem. We don't want to acknowledge that our system is fundamentally flawed and damaged. That it allows human beings, especially the mentally ill, to fucking live out in fucking horrid conditions. We take for granted the fact that we don't get cuts and bug bites and infestations. We don't in any way acknowledge this. Because to do so would hurt too much. And I'm telling you from a Zen view, and you can say, don't put your religion on me, shut the fuck up. From a Zen view, ouch. It doesn't matter. It's just pain. Feel it and move on. Learn from it. Pain is a teacher. Shame is the fucking enemy. It's a reaction you learned because of poorly informed parents and a poorly informed society beating you up for you trying to figure out how to be fucking human. Guilt is there to tell you when you're not in integrity with your values. If I think something negative about a person of color, is that in line with my values? No. Because I believe in equality. I believe in breaking the chains of colonialization. I believe in no longer allowing systemic shit to go through, to continue to happen. And trying to change it, at least in my fucking life, which is in mental health. So if I catch that stray thought that's like from my grandmother from years ago, I'm not going to beat myself up for it. I understand that I was raised in a time in the 80s where I was surrounded by low-income black people, and my grandmother was a fucking racist and basically tried to indoctrinate me into her bullshit. I don't shame myself. I get angry. Yes, Gabriel, guilt tripping is tossed around too much because the simple fact is what people are trying to get you to do is shame yourself. We use words inappropriately. Absolutely. I need everybody to understand this because it's very important. Guilt is your ally. It lets you know when you're off. Empathy and seeing how it affects the other person lets you know that you've done something to the other or affected the other in a way that goes against your values. That's the insight. If you haven't gone against your values, then you don't owe them shit. Unless you need to change your values. That's a different discussion. But if your values are in line with genuine leftist values, that is equality, all that other shit, cool. If you don't feel like you've done something wrong, don't fucking apologize for it. But if you feel like you have, make reparations. Work with the person. Apologies, by the way, are just manipulation without behavioral change. Full stop. I need everybody to understand this. Guilt is valuable. And this is why I'm going against Vosh on this, is not because I think Vosh is wrong about homelessness. I agree with him. What I disagree with is the fact that there is this incredible misunderstanding about guilt versus shame versus a real and necessary feeling and a fucking reaction. Shame is a behavior. And here's the thing that's going to fuck with all your heads. You're going to hate this because we always get upset when we hear this. Spoiler. You fucking choose it. If you go deep enough in your consciousness, deep enough in your own meditation, deep enough in your own personal work, you realize that at some point when those feelings come up, there is a split second, a momentary second, where you realize at the core that there's a choice being made. And 90% of the time, you don't even realize you're making it. This is why I don't hold people. This is why I do not hold people in any way accountable for something they're unaware of, because I think it's abhorrent. It's just a way to breed more shame. But if they're aware of it, they got to work on that shit. You are making a choice. That's the thing that sucks about violence and shame. They are reactions, they are behaviors, they are actions, and they are chosen. Every abuser that's put their fist through the wall chose that. Every person that beats themselves up with shame is choosing to continue that cycle of abuse just inside their own head. And that's not to say we beat them up. That's not to say we don't help them. We do. Full fucking stop. But I need y'all to understand this. Do not conflate guilt and anger with shame and violence. Hey, love. I need you all to understand this as clearly as possible because I do not want to be taken out of context. Look, everyone, it's Zena. I am not arguing with Vosh's take on homelessness. I am arguing with the fact that he used a word that is reoccurringly used to abuse others. It's not guilt, it's shame. We call it out, we talk about it, we work through it. Hello, David. So I think at this point, let's get very clear. Let's understand this as deep as possible. Start using terms properly. What Vosh is talking about is shame. What happens when you beat yourself up in your head and stop yourself from acting is shame, because it's a tactic used by abusers to shut you down and keep you from acting. It's a taught, habitual system that you are choosing at some level, and that doesn't mean you shame yourself for that. It's that you sit deep enough or clear enough or you work with someone enough so that you can see the choice point and choose not to beat yourself up, and it is a lifelong practice. Full stop. Stop demonizing anger. Stop demonizing fucking guilt. Savvy? Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified of our videos. If you want to help the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. You also can become a patron at patreon.com/transgirltherapist. As low as $3, you can support our channel. Thanks for watching.